The Republic of Congo has a long history of colonization and oppression. Previously, the Free Congo state from 1885 to 1905, then the Belgian Congo from 1908 to 1960. The Congolese history is heavily intertwined with Belgium and rulers like King Leopold, who founded both the Congo Free State and the Belgian Congo. Today, we will explore the complex cultural, economic, and humanitarian implications of the Belgian Congo. The Kingdom of Congo was what the Congo was before it was colonized. The Kingdom of Congo was an elective monarchy, meaning that a group of electorates, typically high-class nobles, would choose the next king. On paper, this would allow the nobles to choose the best king to rule. But it resulted in factionalism. It separated the faction vying for the throne and pushing one candidate forward each. The factions typically revolved around the king's children or the children of high nobles, looking to take the throne. After the king was decided, they would ascend to the throne and often kill the competitors once risen. Despite the existence of the king, many small tribes had their own systems and had local leaders. The Portuguese were the first Western civilization to make contact with the Congolese. The Portuguese brought luxuries that the rich in Congo would pay a lot for. The Kingdom of Congo had a tradition of bringing all the war captives to the capital of Congo, which made it very easy for them to start selling them to the Portuguese. This slave trade and other merchandise from Portugal, was one of the main points of the economic growth in Congo at the time. This relationship was halted briefly due to the Congo-Portuguese War. The governor from Portugal declared war on the Congo Kingdom, a state of the Congo, which caused a rift between the merchants of Portugal and the Congolese. To prove the merchants not in alignment with the governor, they revolted against him and he was sent back to Portugal. This allowed the trade to continue and improve. Improvement increased even more from the slaves coming in from various wars. The slaves were not just traded with white merchants, but also Africans. They were bought with the standardized currency of Nzimbu. Nzimbu was used to buy all things in the Congo, and with the shell of a sea slug. The government controlled the harvesting of the sea shells, so they always had money. Eventually, the Kingdom of Congo was colonized by King Leopold II. He, at the Belgian Conference, convinced people that he was a philanthropist, a humanitarian who would do good, successfully gained control of the Congo and changed the name to the Congo Free State. King Leopold was interested in the Congo due to the large amount of natural resources present at the Congo. The two resources most present were rubber and ivory. These two resources led him to cause countless atrocities and more loss of life. He was allowed to do this because the Congo Free State was his own personal territory and not one of Belgium, hence making an absolute monarchy. Instead of doing humanitarian work, he sold materials from the Congo, providing almost no benefit and only lining his pocket with gold. Due to the absurdity of his actions and the horrendous activities between the Congo, both started one of the first humanitarian movements. King Leopold did his best to hide his actions, but he was outed due to the British consul John Casement. In his famous case report detailing the horrid actions, he was forced to surrender, causing him to be forced to surrender his territory to Belgium, turning the Congo Free State into a Belgian Congo. During this time, Belgium wasn't an absolute monarchy, meaning King Leopold had to respect the other powers in Belgium. The Belgian government was a constitutional monarchy, meaning there's a parliament that also has power. In addition, he had to act in accordance to the constitution, significantly reducing Leopold's power. After the Belgian takeover in the Congo was reduced. They made efforts to improve the working conditions, but did little to nothing to help the education and healthcare. Belgium did make small humanitarian efforts, but those were mostly under the use of Christianity to spread it. The precious resources in the Congo were still being held of major interest in Belgium. They hired private companies to mine the countless minerals and sold them on the international market. This, while intended to benefit Belgium, also helped the people of the Congo a bit. It allowed them to get more jobs with use internationally in the country, making it a lot more useful. This really arose during World War I and II because minerals' ability to be made into munitions during the war. During the World War I, the demand for rubber suddenly plummeted due to various places, creating lots of it and flooding the market. But on the contrary, the price of copper skyrocketed, making the demand for it far higher. Copper became the main export of Congo and was sold to both sides during the war. After the war was over, Belgium started realizing the value of the Congo far more. They gave a lot of money to the Congo to help it with public infrastructure and encouraged countries to work in the Congo. It helped everything from airplanes to water. Ways to make the Congo much more competitive with companies. These efforts and economic improvements were starting to help the Congo start to develop. The Great Depression halted a lot of export-based goods because we exported them to America. Then the Second World War started. Another economic boom occurred, and the mining industry bounced back after the crash of the Great Depression. And due to the mandatory cultivation policy, the agricultural sector started a lot of growth. Mandatory cultivation policy forced peasants to plant certain plants, such as cocoa plant and the cotton, to be sold in the international market via Belgium. After World War II, Belgium instituted a 10-year plan that benefited the Congolese on a wide scale. They built houses and funded education policies for the Congolese. Eventually, the Congolese gained the right to sell and purchase private property amongst themselves. Even though a lot of these improvements looked goodwill, all of them there was apartheid laws being made. There's a lot of racial discrimination separating the ability of the Congolese to improve their social standing. The apartheid law began to disappear around the 1950s, but the social implications still remained. Even after these laws separating marriage between the colonies and the West, as well as deporting mixed children to Belgium. During these times, a lot of anti-colonial subcultures between the Congolese and various religious groups, various levels of success. The international view on the colonies drastically changed after World War II. Belgium was placed under a lot of pressure to emancipate the Congo. While Belgium was coming up with a long-term plan to slowly emancipate the Congo, a riot broke out, which was subdued at the cost of Congolese lives. The organizer of this protest was ABACO, or the Alliance of Bas-Congo, a political party which won the freedom of the native people from the Congo. The founder who organized this protest was Patrice Lumumba. He was arrested after the protest that caused only more outrage among the people. This caused much more riots after making Belgium agree to official independence at 1960 election. The election results came out that Joseph Kasavubu, another member of ABACO, became the president, and Patrice Lumumba became the prime minister. A riot broke out in the Fourth Republic. The Congolese police, the majority of the higher ranking officers were filled by Belgians, so the lower ranking officers rebelled. This caused a national evacuation of all Belgians from the Congo with the help of the UN. After this revolt spread, the president announced that the prime minister was deposed, and the same thing happened vice versa. Eventually, Patrice was caught by the government and executed. The UN maintained a large peacekeeping project in the Congo that ended around 1965. Shortly after this ended, a coup d'etat held by Joseph Mobutu placed him in the power. He officially became the president. He renamed many of the original cities to their original names rather than their Belgian names. He held a close relationship with Belgium during his reign of presidency. Mobutu's regime slowly became more radical over time. He established the one-party rule of the Congo and changed its name to Zaire. He kicked out many of the foreign workers, which drove the economy into the ground, making his reputation of spread of being a horrible leader. The relationship with Belgium often reflected their economic standpoint at the time. After the fall of the Soviet Union, Mobutu lost the Western support, causing him to lose to rebels' forces. The leader, Laurent Desire Kabila, was appointed himself as president in 1997 and changed the name of the Congo to the Democratic Republic of Congo. He was soon revealed to be a no better ruler than Mobutu and was assassinated in 2001. After he died, his son, Joseph Kabila, replaced him in 2016, the second real election since 1960. He was confirmed as president through the public vote. He was then re-elected in 2011, but according to many of the bystanders, this re-election should have been counted due to many of the polling stations in the area where his opponent was favored lost. Nevertheless, he was still sworn in and ran until 2018. The original election term was supposed to end in 2016, but the election was delayed until 2018. Kabila did not run for president this term. Felix Tshisekedi, the supposed winner of the 2018 election, was accused of running the election multiple times. He was still sworn in and rose to president in 2019. He is publicly known for embezzling, abusing human rights, and committing fraud. Despite this, he was unfairly re-elected in 2023, with outside sources citing a rigged election. Yet still, nothing had been done. The former president was also outed as embezzling over $100 million during his government. Both of these presidents have been doing nothing to help the humanitarian crisis in the Congo. Similarly to one of the worst presidents, one of the worst leaders of the Congo, King Leopold II. Now on to Felix.
Before the Belgian colonization of the Congo, there was Christianity in the Congo. As early as 14 91, King Zinga converted to Christianity, and the Congo was known as Christian for the next 200 years. The native religions were mostly known as animistic, meaning that all objects, animals, and things had a spiritual essence. Although the specific religions are not known, there were anti-European religious groups active during the 1920s. One example of these religious groups is Kimbenguism. It is the name of its founder, Simon Kimbengu, and it denied the use of violence, polygamy, magic, witchcraft, alcohol, tobacco, and dancing. Its worships are Baptists. Many other smaller, loosely organized groups in Central Africa also regard Kimbengu as God's special prophet. During the start of colonization, specifically Roman Catholicism spread rapidly through the Belgian Congo as a result of Belgian Catholic missions. These missions would consist of missionaries helping in the schools and hospitals. Now, the DRC is about 50% Roman Catholic, and this is a product of the colonization and the Belgian Catholic missions within the Congo. The impact of the Catholic Church is immense, with about half of the population being its religious services. That's almost 600,000 people, and the Catholic Church owning many hospitals, schools, and libraries. The Catholic Church has this much power because almost 6% of kids, as well as 50% of adults in the Congo, are enrolled in Catholic services. The Belgian Congo was a Belgian colony in Central Africa from 1908 to 1960, when independence was gained. It turned into the Congo Free State and later became the Democratic Republic of the Congo. It is located in the very middle of Africa, and it is bordered by 10 countries. They include Rwanda, Uganda, South Sudan, Tanzania, and Angola. The Congo is also located on the equator, which means that the north part of the country, like Egypt, Morocco, and northern Sudan, are very hot and humid, while the southern side is cooler and drier. An example of this is the Sahara Desert, which is known to be the biggest and hottest desert in the world. The Congo is mostly landlocked except for a 25-mile area on the west coast. The west is a rainforest crisscrossed by rivers, while the east is the very opposite and is a plateau-ridden savanna. It also must be mentioned that the rivers and the rainforest climate play a powerful role in the Congo Congolese. The rivers are important to regional trade and provide a source of food and water, while the rainforest climate causes more annual rainfall, which makes it hard to grow crops in the area. The climate also affects the overall population and population density because of the dependency of rain.
Much of what we hear about the Congo relates to Belgian and European oppression. However, separate from colonization, Congo also has a rich culture and history. Some of their culture, like art and expression, are still prominent today, while aspects of religion and especially social structure have changed drastically. Most of Congo's population has originated in the Bantu tribe, an indigenous ethno-linguistic group in Africa. They were originally farmers and herders, a trend that has been seen in West Africa throughout history. As previously mentioned, we know Congo has a large art background, including pottery, basketry, textiles, and wood carving, which are some of the main handicrafts found in the Congo. Ceramic vases and African masks are some of the most well-known, for artists like Picasso taking inspiration from the bold, stylized approach of African art versus the realism and naturalism of Western art. Art in the Congo, both then and now, reflects the resources and range of media present. Artworks such as masks and sculptures represent a wide range of topics, including political figures, government, or even fertility and femininity. Congolese culture is heavily focused on family, weaving raffia, a type of cloth made from plants and made from the leaves of the raffia plant, making pottery, and creating ceremonial dress is a huge part of everyday life in the Congo. Other art forms, such as music and playwriting, have also evolved as a form of expression. Music often features djembe drums and bata drums, as well as other types. Theater groups like the Congo Square Theater inspire many to express themselves and their cultural background. By using dream or fantasy sequences, dance, drums, or other traditional instruments, Congolese actors can pass down stories in a way that highlights their history and shared strengths. From centuries ago to now, stories and legends have been passed down orally through griots, or West African storytellers who traveled and used poetry, song, and musical instruments to retain and share important historical and current information. Griots would also keep track of birth, death, and marriage records in their villages to preserve genealogies and historical narratives. They were expert lyricists, musicians, and storytellers who helped keep Congolese culture alive. While most of these things have been preserved throughout the centuries, what about other aspects of culture like religion and social structure? Congo before Belgian interest was very family-focused and close-knit. The chief or clan leader led the social hierarchy, and family was put above everything else. The leader of the village's power was tied to his ancestors and his descendants, meaning one only had a chance of leadership if he were the son of a leader. This kept violence over leadership at a minimum. At this time, all property was distributed and held between many people, often a village or a family, displaying the importance of community in Congo's culture. However, when Belgium first established the Belgian Congo after trying and failing with the Congo Free State, social hierarchy and land ownership began to change dramatically. At the order of King Leopold II, newly appointed district commanders could revoke pre-colonial leaders' rights as they saw fit. This later caused much outrage on who should be in power and who should control large swaths of land. Land that was previously owned by families was called vacant territory and redistributed to Belgian or white individuals. Land went from being owned and farmed by villages and families to being controlled by Belgian commanders who forced the native Congolese people to work this land. The land was also leased instead of sold, leading to land shortage issues that still affect the DRC today. After being ravaged by Belgium, land ownership and the legitimacy of rulers was constantly called into question. Most importantly, the patriarchal or matriarchal family structure is no longer reflected in society. This long-term lack of property rights also caused outrage and frustration and many land disputes. This ultimately led to the Civil War, and repercussions of the Belgian Congo are still very present in the DRC today. In the 1300s, Congo was a highly developed country, and the Congo Empire spanned southwestern Congo, northern Angola, as well as part of the Republic of Congo. From the 1300s all the way up to the 1800s, Congo was ruled by kings selected from a combination of royal blood and popular vote. Candidates for king would submit their candidature to a council of the wisest men in their provinces, and the council would pick one to appear before the king's 12 wise counselors. There are two candidates who would be selected, and on the election day of the High Council's choosing, the 12 counselors would pick a single candidate.
During the late 19th and early 20th century, the Belgian Congo became infamous for the treatment of the indigenous population. The Congo Free State, it was initially called, was marked by extreme exploitation, oppression, and violence. During the era of colonization, the treatment of indigenous populations and colonized people varied greatly, often marked by exploitation and oppression. European power, driven by economic gain, sought to control many territories, leading to significant impacts on native populations. One of the most severe aspects of colonization was the forced labor systems by colonizers. In places like the Americas and Africa, indigenous people and enslaved Africans were coerced into working on plantations, in mines, and other labor industries. The exploitation was brutal, with harsh working conditions and little regard for the well-being of the people. The exploitation of the Congo's resources, especially rubber, led to a widespread suffering among the native population driven by the industrial boom in Europe and America. Under King Leopold II's rule, the Congo Free State was essentially his personal property, and he implemented brutal policies to extract resources. The indigenous population, including children, were forced into labor, and failure to meet the quotas often resulted in severe punishment, including mutilation and death. Villages were often destroyed, and people were taken hostage to force others into labor. The Force Publique, a colonial military force, was known for its brutality. They were responsible for enforcing the quotas with extreme violence. Soldiers of the force were known to use whips and other forms of torture to make sure they complied. The harsh conditions, violence, and diseases led to a large decline in the population. The Force Publique's actions contributed largely to the suffering of Congolese people. Many Congolese were subjected to inhuman working conditions. For example, starvation, amputations, lack of medical care, kidnapping villages, family separation, destruction of villages, lack of education, cultural suppression, not enough rest, psychological trauma, sexual violence, and punishments like whippings and beatings. The rubber collection process was hazardous, involving climbing trees and handling toxic substances. These conditions led to lots of injuries and deaths among the work. The exploitation of labor was a central feature of the colonial economy. They prioritized profit over human lives. Reports of these atrocities eventually reached the international community, leading to widespread outrage. The journalists and activists played crucial roles in exposing the horror of Leopold's regime and brought global attention to the Congolese people. In response to the international pressure, the Belgian government took control of the Congo Free State in 1908, renaming it the Belgian Congo. While some reforms were put in place, the exploitation and oppressive practices continued, but in a less brutal form. Cultural suppression was another tool used by the colonizers to control indigenous populations. Traditional languages, religions, and customs were often banned or discouraged, replaced by the colonizers' own cultural earshot, intended to assimilate indigenous people into the colonial society and undermine their identity. Education systems established by colonizers were designed to indoctrinate indigenous children with colonial values. Missionary schools, in particular, played a significant role in this process, teaching European languages and Christianity while devaluing native knowledge and beliefs while still being minimal and inadequate. Occasionally, the introduction of European diseases to which the native population had no immunity further lowered populations. Diseases such as smallpox, influenza, and sleeping sickness spread rapidly among the Congolese. The lack of medical care and the harsh living conditions worsened the impact of these diseases. The population decline and the weakening of their ability to resist colonization due to the disease was a tragic consequence of colonization, adding to the suffering caused by the forced labor and violence. The legacy of the Belgian Congo is one of suffering and exploitation. The colonial period left deep scars on the Congolese society, contributing to ongoing social and economic challenges. The struggle for independence, achieved in 1960, was fraught with conflict and instability, partly rooted in the colonial era injustices. Today, the Belgian colonization of the Congo state is remembered as a dark chapter of colonial history due to the suffering and loss it caused, and serves as a reminder of the devastating impact of colonialism. It underscores the importance of historical awareness.
Bye!
Oh, that sounded so lame. I don't know. Sorry for being grumpy with you.
It's okay. We forgive you, Mr. Boni. Was that fun?
I'm gonna gaslight myself into thinking it was. That was kind of fun.
It was okay.
Also, you're reading.